Well, welcome to this year's 2021 Test Security Integrity Training. I know it's as action packed as each year. We did try to kind of liven it up a little bit by adding some Bitmojis. So please sit back and enjoy this year's Test Security Integrity Training.
So our agenda today will be as followed. We're going to talk about the importance of these trainings annually. You will watch a video from the Indiana Department of Education. We will discuss future trainings that you will encounter during this year. Key resources will be presented and at your disposal. There'll be time for questions, yes, via email, and then some post-video activities.
Now we want to start by talking about the importance. The Administrative Regulation 511, Indiana Administrative Code 5-5-5 requires that any individual who administers, handles, or has access to secure test materials at the school or school corporation shall complete assessment training and sign a test security and integrity agreement to remain on file in the appropriate building level office each year. Any licensed educator or administrative personnel, by action or inaction, who fails to develop, institute, follow, and enforce security test administration policies in their school corporation, which undermine the integrity and or inhibit the effectiveness of a standardized test, will face disciplinary action under Indiana Code 20-28-5-7 and other applicable remedies available under state and federal laws.
Now it's time to view the all-staff test security training for 2020-21 presented by the Indiana Department of Education. I don't want to give a spoiler alert here, but there is some background music this year.
Welcome to the Office of Student Assessment's 2020-2021 All-Staff Test Security Training. Although this training primarily highlights information for test administrators and proctors, all school staff must complete test security training to ensure they are aware of test security procedures and requirements. This awareness will be helpful in the event staff are asked to engage in activities that could be a violation, or if staff observe and need to report a violation. This slide shares the agenda for this training. Please take a moment to review the topics that will be covered. There are several key test security documents. Documents and resources related to test security that are listed on this slide have been updated for the new school year. Please carefully review these important documents and contact your STC with any questions. TAs must hold an instructional, administrative, or school services license granted by IDOE. TAs play a critical role with testing. As such, it is important to be aware of the responsibilities associated with this role. A checklist was developed to assist TAs with understanding the various tasks for which they are responsible. The Assessment User Roles and Responsibilities checklist is available in the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual on the assessment website. The diagram on the left-hand side of this slide summarizes a few of the key test security responsibility areas for test administrators. TAs must do the following: complete all applicable test administration, test security, and test accommodations training, review test administrators' manuals and the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual prior to testing, monitor students during testing, follow security regulations for pickup and return of secure assessment materials for online and/or paper pencil testing, and finally, TAs must immediately report to the school test coordinator any missing assessment materials, interruptions, invalidations, test irregularities, or security concerns. TAs should review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual, Assessment User Roles and Responsibilities checklist, and TAMS for more details regarding their responsibilities. School staff that do not hold an appropriate license may only serve as proctors. Unlicensed personnel cannot supervise testing without a TA being present. As outlined on the right-hand side of this slide, proctors also have key responsibilities related to testing. While some of these responsibilities are shared here, additional responsibilities are outlined in detail throughout the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual. Please be sure to review this resource for more information. All school staff must receive test security training, sign the Indiana Testing Security and Integrity Agreement, and review the test security related documents referenced in the Integrity Agreement on an annual basis. Cafeteria workers may receive a modified, shorter test security training that is incorporated into an already scheduled staff or contractor meeting. And bus drivers do not need to complete test security training or sign the Integrity Agreement. In addition to the fall all-staff test security training, TAs and proctors must complete several other trainings prior to each assessment window. iLearn, iAM, iRead3, and iStep TAs must complete a TA certification course in Cambium system prior to testing annually. Please note that the iAM TA certification course is separate and different than the other courses for the other programs. All TA certifications must be valid as of the time of testing, and TAs cannot sign in to administer tests under another TA certification credentials, as this would put student tests at risk of invalidation. WIDA TAs must complete WIDA training every 2 years via WIDA Secure Portal. There are also local trainings that must be completed. TAs and proctors must complete test administration, accommodation, and refresher test security trainings provided by their CTC or STC prior to each assessment window. Before testing, TAs need to communicate test security protocols with students in order to prevent potential invalidations due to violations. A few of these communication topics are listed on this slide. For example, students should be reminded that they cannot do the following: discuss, rephrase, or paraphrase test questions or materials in person, by phone, via email, texting or social media, or any other communication with anyone, including but not limited to other students. Access cell phones, smartwatches, or any other unauthorized device during testing, or take pictures, snapshots, or videos of any test material, practice, or operation. Please review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual for more details. As you reflect on the student reminder information that was just provided, consider how you would answer this question.
What are some simple ways you could share these reminders with students?
Several stakeholders are required to monitor during testing. TAs and proctors must continually monitor students during testing. Consequently, it is important that they give test administration their full attention. It is not acceptable for TAs and/or proctors to leave students unsupervised for any amount of time, to concentrate on other tasks or materials, or to otherwise ignore what is happening. TAs and proctors need to walk around the testing room, actively monitoring students throughout test sessions. Students must be monitored to ensure they follow instructions, do not exchange answers with others, do not interfere with or distract others, and use only allowable materials and devices. Please review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual for more details. CTCs and STCs, or their designees, also have monitoring responsibilities during testing. CTCs and/or STCs monitor TAs and proctors to ensure they are adhering to test administration and test security protocols with fidelity. This slide includes some of the key things CTCs and STCs will monitor. The Office of Student Assessment also conducts monitoring visits during assessment windows. In the past, these visits were always on site. However, this year, our office will implement online monitoring visits as long as COVID concerns exist. The purpose of IDOE monitoring is to ensure schools are appropriately implementing test administration and test security protocols. Please be sure to review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual, Section 2, as well as the monitoring checklist in Appendix B for more details. There are a number of things staff may mistakenly or intentionally do during testing that are considered inappropriate action. Carefully review this list of inappropriate actions noted on this slide. One additional note that should be mentioned is related to the coaching text at the bottom of this slide. Even if a TA or proctor does not provide the correct answer to a student, but provides tips, refers to prior lessons completed or classroom examples, or shares that an answer is incorrect, this is coaching and is not appropriate. Now, carefully review these additional inappropriate actions. It's clear that there are many actions that are not appropriate. As you reflect on the list that were just reviewed, consider how you might answer this question. How can you ensure you don't engage in these unallowable actions? If a concern arises regarding the functionality of a test item, contact your STC or CTC. During such communication, you should only refer to the item by sharing the assessment name, grade level, content area, section, or segment number, and item number. Never email, text, photograph, video, or post a copy of the item, a paraphrased item, or answer choices, not even to IDOE or a vendor. The STC or CTC will then notify IDOE or the testing vendor if warranted based on the concern. Discussing test items before, during, or after testing is not appropriate. Test items are not to be discussed unless and until the items are released on the IDOE website. As such, it is important to remember the following. Reviewing test questions with students is not appropriate until or unless IDOE releases the items by posting them on the website, and discussing, videoing, texting, photographing, emailing, or posting actual or paraphrased test questions is not acceptable until or unless IDOE releases the items by posting them on the website. In the next several minutes, as you listen to guidance regarding test irregularities and test security concerns, think about how you would answer these two questions.
How can you avoid irregularities and violations? Do you know how to report a concern?
A testing irregularity is any unexpected event that significantly disrupts the testing environment of one or more students. You must immediately report irregularities to the CTC or STC. CTCs and STCs must then immediately report irregularities to IDOE. Common irregularities that were reported to IDOE that should be avoided this year include TAs not administering the practice test before operational testing. TAs need to verify students have completed the practice test at least once prior to the operational test. If TAs are uncertain whether a student has completed the practice test, they should contact their STC for assistance. test ticket swaps, or students accessing another student's test. TAs need to confirm the correct student is accessing the correct test. TAs administering test segments or sections out of order or the wrong segment or section. This typically occurred when TAs did not verify they were approving the correct test for students before allowing students to proceed. TAs need to remember to verify the appropriate test is selected for each student before approving students to move forward. Accommodations not being provided to appropriate students. Before testing, TAs should confirm they know which students should receive accommodations and understand how to verify those students receive the appropriate accommodations. Lastly, TAs should contact their STC for guidance on test irregularities as soon as possible, rather than notifying STCs days or weeks after irregularities have occurred. Late notification to the STC and subsequently the IDOE can lead to invalidations that could have been avoided had follow-up been more prompt. All concerns regarding test security violations must be immediately reported to the CTC and STC, immediately reported by CTCs or STCs to IDOE. Waiting until after the assessment window is closed to report test security concerns is not appropriate. Failing to report a test security concern immediately to the CTC, STC, or IDOE is in and of itself a test security violation. Finally, test security violations must be investigated by appropriate corporation staff. This slide shares common test security violations that were reported to IDOE that should be avoided this year. Let's discuss the first two violations listed on this slide. Sharing test information electronically or via discussions with others and inappropriate use or access to cell phones. This includes TAs and students talking to, emailing, or texting others about secure test content, as well as students posting pictures or videos of secure test content to social media and using cell phones during testing. Remember, it's not appropriate for staff or students to review, discuss, video, text, post, photograph, or email actual or paraphrased test questions or content. In addition, TAs and proctors will need to enforce local protocols for collecting and removing cell phones or other unallowable devices from the room before testing begins. Another common violation reported to IDOE was coaching. Remember, it's not appropriate to do the following: indicate in any way that an answer choice is correct or incorrect, should be reconsidered, or should be checked. Answer students' factual questions regarding test items or vocabulary, or say, do, or write anything on the board that is not explicitly described in manuals. The last common violation reported to IDOE is related to missing or late return of secure materials. Be sure to follow the appropriate protocols for documented pickup and return of secure materials back to the STC. This concludes this year's all-staff test security training. It is essential for all school staff to be familiar with appropriate assessment test security protocols. If you have questions about any local test security guidance or practices, please contact your CTC or STC in advance to minimize potential violations. If you have questions regarding state test security guidance, please contact our test security specialist, Tricia Stevens, using the details on this slide. Thank you for reviewing this training. On behalf of the Office of Student Assessment, we wish you a successful school year.
At this time, we want to talk about future trainings. A proctor-specific training led by your STC, and if you remember what STC stands for, your school test coordinator, will be conducting prior to the following testing: I read, I learn, I-STEP, initial and retesting, and IM. For those 4 different tests, there will be specific training for proctors. These building-based trainings will cover the following items: scheduling details, examiner manuals, proctor actions and student actions before, during, and after, accommodations, as well as preparing the environment.
If something atypical occurs while you are testing, your school test coordinator would rather know about it sooner rather than later. So please report it, because oftentimes things that are reported within the day can quickly be rectified through just a few phone calls.
And when in doubt, please report.
Now, Mr. Gailey is going to talk about these resources. Again, they are hyperlinked to this presentation that will be emailed out to you for your disposal.
You can see there's a number of resources hyperlinked here. We have 10 different links. You can see there are assessment manuals, the test security and integrity agreement, the code of ethical practices and procedures, roles and responsibilities checklist. You can see protocols for reporting and investigating alleged assessment breaches, testing concerns and security violations reports, the 2021 social media and or unallowable device concerns report instructions. You can see the accessibility and accommodations guidance, assessment on-site monitoring checklist, and the Office of Student Assessment website links.
In addition, if you have questions, please email them to Andrea Spaeth at spaeth@elberg.k12.in.us. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of our video. There are some post-video activities that we are going to need you to take care of. Your building principals have dispersed the Indiana Department of Education Test Security and Integrity Agreement for the 2020-21 school year. Please sign this and get this back to your building principal. As to be accounted for, you need to have proof of watching the video, which is done in Safe Schools, and then you need to have signed off on the agreement.
Thank you so much for participating in this test security activity with us.